I would like to urge that we in the West not be taken in by the outworn notion of political correctness. The secular community needs to take a strong stand against religious laws and religious coercion from any religion or government that embraces them. We need to defend our precious right of expression and thought. People have been tortured, imprisoned, and have died to preserve their integrity and their beliefs. We need to honor them and to safeguard future generations from a return to medievalism under the guise of protecting religion. Let us protect instead our precarious and precious human right to think, speak, and believe what we give credence to. In the case of the secular community, we must press forward and defend our right to speak our unbelief and dissent from credence in the supernatural and superstition and in the outdated notion of dualism. The attempt to pass laws against defamation of religion must be fought with time, with money, and with a strong resolve to resist such obscurantism. If we do not, future generations will be in danger of having to once again fight the war for freedom. Let us dedicate ourselves to defending our liberty and keeping it safe from those who would stifle it all over the world. I would like to repeat my original contention that all blasphemy laws around the globe should be revoked, even those that appear dormant. Religion is somewhat weakened, especially in the West, but a dying snake can still lash out and poison the unwary at its final throes. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wow. Get ready, business.
Thank you. It was really enjoyable researching this.
The book Silence that you mentioned at the end, is that all about blasphemy?
Pardon?
The book Silence by Paul Marshall?
It's by blasphemy and other things, but it tends to be like more religious. He's not, a secular person. So he's very pro-religion.
But he's against blasphemy.
Yeah, he's against laws that, blasphemy, apostasy, and what have you. But I didn't find it very helpful in terms of, the secular community. Levy's book is Blasphemy is huge, but it's really very good. It's much better than Marshall for our purposes. He's really done an incredible job on blasphemy.
And what's the title of that book?
It's entitled Blasphemy. It's
Just
enormous.
like
Yeah, I mean, he is. I think he's the world's expert on blasphemy.
Has he ever been charged?
No,
You would think.
he's an American professor, so I don't think so. But I can't believe the kaleidoscope of that book and how he's discussed blasphemy and all its manifestations.
Does anybody need a break before we have questions and discussion? You doing okay? Staying awake? Good.
You doing good?
I'm fine.
How would you distinguish between the blasphemy laws and the laws that were just persecutions against the minority religion in the country?
It would just depend on how the laws were stated.
Because the Christians say in the Islamic countries, would they be accused of being blasphemous, or would they just be accused of being Christian in another religion? So,
Well, actually, they persecute for so many reasons, blasphemy, heresy, being a different religion.
how do they? Because how could you allow anybody to practice any other religion if you had a law against blasphemy? Practicing against another religion, believing in another religion would automatically put you against the law, wouldn't it?
Not really, because you have to disparage the deity. So I guess you could practice a religion if you don't say anything, bad about the majority
The
religion.
majority religion, even though
So it's not necessarily having a different belief about that deity.
That's
It's
heresy.
specifically-
That's heresy.
Okay, so
That's
that is
heresy.
the distinction.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So in other words, the Sunnis and the Shiites might not agree, but they both believe in Muhammad and God, so that they're not blaspheming.
I think that they're heretics. Yeah,
Well,
I'm not
no,
sure.
they're, well, yeah,
Yeah, they would be heretics.
one to each other.
Yeah,
each other
because
they would
you
be
have this, you
heretical.
have, you agree with most of the tenets, but you disagree with some of them, and that makes you a
But you
heretic.
still fundamentally believe that.
Yeah, same kind of
Okay,
thing,
okay.
yeah.
So out of the 25,
They'll still kill you.
Right.
out of the 25,000, say, Christian denominations, they're all heretics? Because they have slight differences in belief between each other?
Heretical to each other.
To each
I
other.
think that they're considered infidels.
No, we're infidels.
We're the
No,
infidels.
they would be heretical.
Well, you're on the right
Isn't
track,
that what the-
because that would be, that's the,
I was having a
They
hard
are
time with these
heretical.
nuances, too. They're
Take-
heretical to each other.
take the Baptist church, and all of, when they branch
They're
off,
schisms.
when they branch off and have a schism, the ones who have gone off are heretics. They still believe in God and all the things
Right.
that in Christianity,
Yeah,
the crucifixion and so forth,
Jesus
but
Christ
they
is the
have
Savior.
different view of it. So they're heretical from the main,
Which explains
Thrust.
why Protestants are heretical to Catholics and Catholics are heretical
Exactly.
to Protestants and blah blah blah. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
And now
I kind of get the distinction now.
Now in Islam, so you're saying that Christians are not necessarily blaspheming, but if they try to convert a Muslim, I believe that's
yeah, that's,
oh, that's
yeah.
terrible.
yeah.
But I think that's another law
And
again.
a Muslim that changes his faith.
That's
That's
apostasy.
apostasy.
That's apostasy,
Okay,
yes.
so that's apostasy.
Yeah.
And there's
And that
laws
is
against
also
apostasy
punishable by
too.
death.
Oh, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
There's laws
Yeah.
against
It's
apostasy.
I'll
like
be
the
doing
worst crime.
apostasy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would all be
People
dead.
Who believe in the
It's a
flying.
Hotel California faith.
Spaghetti monster.
You check in, but you can never check out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand it's very easy to join too, Islam.
Just
Oh,
dodge
yeah.
the
It's very
sword.
hard to get out.
Yeah. You have to-
But there's a lot of people here who have left the faith
she
and,
died.
you know, have not been murdered.
Mhm.
There's
So
at
then again,
least two
it is-
meetups of former Muslims.
So again, and I know I might be thick on this one, but so blasphemy, heresy, and apostasy.
They're all different.
So apostasy is
Leaving your religion.
leaving your religion. Blasphemy is speaking against.
It's like disparaging God, like saying that Jesus is a whoremaster, like that guy was prosecuted.
Well,
Or
isn't even
dispar-
goddamn a blasphemy?
Yes, I believe it
I mean-
is, yeah.
Anything that's
And then heresy is
It's,
Jesus wasn't of a virgin mother. for
yeah,
example.
or
not
Jesus,
believing.
But you're
Jesus
Christian.
was not the son of God, like Arian said. He was adopted by God and
He's
given
adopted.
So
like,
it's not
Christian.
believing
yeah, certain tenets.
little bits of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But
yeah.
you would still be, you'd call yourself a Christian, but you don't accept certain
Mhm.
doctrine.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, as Reese was saying, means all denominations are
heretical to
heretical
Yes, to each other, exactly.
because they have varying.
Yeah,
That's an interesting thing.
And so we're not we are heretics or we're not?
No,
We're not.
they're
Infidels.
I
apostates.
guess we're apostates.
No, we're
We're
infidels.
blasphemers.
We're infidels too.
Infidels.
Well, we can
apostates.
blaspheme.
And we're blasphemers.
Casually
We're definitely
talking about-
blasphemers.
Right, we're blasphemers.
Yeah.
We're apostates.
Apostates.
But not
Are,
heretics.
we're not heretics.
I don't
If
think
you
so
never
because we
believed
don't
in the
believe any
religion.
of the things.
Yeah, you couldn't be an apostate unless you had.
Jimmy, give me
accepted-
another little piece of chocolate since you're up.
But since we're
Yeah,
all
well,
here
you're right.
confessing,
Thank you, sweetie.
since we're all here
How
confessing
do you feel?
our sins,
How do you
I think
feel?
we've been redeemed.
But
No, you have to be.
Oh no, we didn't actually.
so wait, because we never believed. Which I never.
Well, if you
believed.
never believe, then you can't be an apostate. That it's just self-contradictory.
You're right. So what
Right.
are we?
So you would be an
Infidels?
infidel is a
Infidels.
non-believer.
We're
We're
infidels.
just we're infidels,
Kefir.
but we're
So
not
that's the fourth
heretics.
Kefir in the Arabic.
Yeah, we're not heretics
You mean the
because
yogurt?
we don't reject
Something
minor
like that.
tenets. We
We reject the whole
It's
the
thing.
whole
thing.
Right, we drinky stuff.
We are
okay.
blasphemers.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely
We're
we're blasphemers.
blasphemers, we're infidels, but we're not heretics and we're not apostates.
No.
We're apostates
I
because
think
we've
they're
all left our
apostate.
original
I
religion.
believe-
You're
Well,
not. How
yeah,
dare
some-
you
We never
include
had one.
everybody?
I never believed in it.
Reese
believed in it.
has
Well, you
it.
didn't have to believe it, but did you belong to one
What does that
with your
mean?
family?
Well, my parents.
That's it?
No, actually, my parents never belonged
Oh.
to an organized the church
Then you're
either.
not an apostate.
Well, you're not you don't have
I
a
mean,
problem.
their parents did, but
Right.
they never took us to an organized church.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
okay,
you're
well,
clear.
then you're not
We
an
were
apostate.
never. Well, although I was baptized, does that mean something?
Oh.
I think so,
No.
yeah.
Even though I had no choice
You
in
had
that.
a, you had a,
Let me
Yeah.
give it to you.
Jewish,
That
you'd
was
be
the
Catholic.
church.
That's
The
it.
road to hell is
You're an
greased for you.
apostate. Yeah, you're an apostate
Straight
too.
shot.
So that makes
Do
me an
not pass
apostate,
go.
even though I had no choice.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't. I.
It's a gray
So,
area.
There was a
Yeah.
Infidels and we're blasphemers. Okay.
point you were.
I was gonna get heretic tattoo.
That came to mind, and that is, in my upbringing, and I'm sure in every
I would've
church,
been
they tell
wrong
the
to
story
see
of
it.
Moses, and he came down the mountain, and he had the tablets, and he saw they had a golden cow, and he got angry. And that's kind of where the story stops. They don't tell you the next sentence, which is, he hired some mercenaries and killed 3,000 people. They don't mention it.
No, he broke
And
the
it
tablets.
I learned that.
He
It
broke
says-
the
He
tablets.
broke the tablets.
He broke the tablets too.
And he hired mercenaries and
Okay.
killed
Oh, yeah.
the same amount of people that died in the Twin
No,
Towers.
I learned
Let me just
that.
put it to you that way.
Yeah.
I learned that
And
in school though. They
my-
taught us that in Sunday school.
They never mentioned it to me in my
I
Catholic
guess it greets
upbringing,
from
or in any
bloodthirsty.
in any sermon that I've
Really?
ever heard. They talk this, and I've talked to many Christians. And I say, "Tell me the story of Moses," and they never get.
They don't know this.
They never get to the very next. It's so
Oh
rare.
my God, is that interesting?
So the question, from my point of view, is because I believe the scripture just says Moses was angry, and he hired the mercenaries. And
when
killed
they got
3,000
mad in the
people.
Old Testament,
But-
they really got mad.
Was he actually just enforcing a blasphemy law or an apostasy? What's the word?
Apostasy.
Well, the
Apostasy
tablet has
law.
thou shalt not worship other gods before me. So
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were
So
worshiping.
they were
They
blaspheming.
were worshiping this pagan god.
Heavy duty blasphemy.
Remember, I suspect from what I've been reading is
What
that
about
that the Israelites were worshiping sometimes other gods.
Yeah.
You know, and the prophets had a hell of a time with them. You
They
know, and it
sacrificed
was
babies and stuff.
Yes.
well, actually, I believe the Israelites did that themselves. There's
Yeah.
some controversy over that, but it seems to, you know.
Well, you get a good night's sleep.
So
I mean,
everybody was
Yeah.
sacrificing babies, it
rational
seems,
decisions.
which is odd when you think about it because there was such a high mortality rate. I guess maybe that would show your real thing that you would sacrifice the future life of your community. Because think
Well,
about it, I mean, it was a high
Yeah,
mortality
there's
rate
no
with
birth
food.
begin
control,
with.
so there's
Yeah.
also, there was a high pregnancy rate too.
Yeah, but they were all dying, and that means that
Perhaps.
the future of your community is at some risk.
I had a
Which is-
conversation with a
Why can't I?
Orthodox Jew friend I have, and the question was, there's a lot of reasons that you could be stoned to death. I mean,
You
there's
can ask
so
Norm
many
about
rules,
that, because
right?
I'm not an expert
There's a
on that.
lot of reasons for it, like homosexuality.
Masturbation.
Our
But
resident
in
owner
the-
on stoning.
In the historical record, at least from what I read, no one ever was actually stoned for homosexuality.
Oh, I believe so.
Because
Norm,
you
you
had
better-
to be, it's really hard to prove. But the point was that I'm asking this guy, are there any reasons that you kill people now? And he says, no, there's none. We don't kill people anymore for breaking those rules.
Well, then, go
And
ahead.
I'm like, oh, well, so I don't understand. I mean, are the rules, did it all change?
God's law.
There you
It's
go.
like
uh,
Christianity. Do they stone you for working on Sunday? No,
Well,
all
that's
the
still
malls
in the
are
Jewish
open.
Bible though, right? Because
But Christians observed that at one time. You weren't even supposed
Well,
to
they
do
don't
it.
now.
The
They-
Puritans-
We'll have blue laws
Do we
too.
have slaves?
it's all
Yes,
that's-
well,
Let
yeah,
Greg
yeah,
finish
we
his
do.
point, though.
I'm
You
sorry.
have a point there with the Jew.
yeah, just that was the point that he's saying. Despite the fact all these rules are there, we don't kill for any of those reasons.
However, they're still there.
Do they even do anything?
Well, how did
The
he
laws
explain
are
that the
still
laws
there.
are still there?
He did say, and I didn't quite get the gist of this. He said, you can imprison them, don't feed them, then feed them barley and let them drink water, and the barley will swell and kill them.
Oh,
But they're killing themselves because
Oh,
they drank
suicide.
the water.
Okay.
Because you're not allowed to
Forced
kill.
suicide. You're
No, I-
starving them.
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
I
That's
hear you.
murder.
So I didn't quite get if he was saying it's still done.
That's
It-
interesting.
But
I
I
can't
thought I'd let it
imagine
go.
Is he
that it's
talking
still.
about in some odd little
I
corner
can't
of weird Jewish
imagine that
Orthodox
it's still
world?
done.
It was a lunch and
I
polite
can't
company,
imagine.
and
I can't
Well, he
imagine.
never explained why the law was still in the
Interesting.
Bible, and yet they're not.
and they don't follow it.
Not following it.
Because they're supposed to follow it. Technically,
There's a lot of
it's all rules. You're not eating this. You're not doing that.
I can't remember, does it cite punishment for each?
Yeah,
Does each
you-
come with rules / punishment?
I know there are punishments.
I know there are
I didn't
some, but
study.
do they all?
I read through the
Do they all?
667 rules or something.
Are there 667
Like you can't
punishments?
eat non-kosher locusts, or
Or,
if you rape a girl, you have to marry her. So she wins both ways, right?
Not
She gets to live with a
necessarily.
rapist.
yeah, now she gets
She
it.
gets
Yeah,
to live
look
with a
what she
rapist.
gets, a rapist.
And,
Yeah,
Hmm.
great.
but he himself, he said there was 4 reasons you're allowed to be married. One is contract, one is an exchange of money or something, one is
So
if you rape a
slavery.
girl and you have to marry her, so you find the hot one and rape her first.
Right.
And
That's
but
charming.
his marriage actually is a contract that he has hanging on the wall in his
Actually,
house. He made a
The
contract.
whatever that is, I read something about that and I was like, that is not bad. That is not a bad
A
thing.
contract, yeah.
Because the contract specifically states what the husband and, I mean, it depends on what the terms, but it specifically states what can and can't be done, and it's about as close as women could get to any protection.
That's the apologist's point of view. Yeah, that it was actually protecting women, but when you look at it, really,
Well, I'm not saying it makes it, the religious part is right, I'm saying
It defines minimum sex, right?
It would be
actually-
probably,
it's like a prenuptial.
yeah, it's like a
Technically
prenup.
prenuptial. I mean, the point is
Yeah.
that at least they had some
Yeah.
rights. I don't necessarily care about the
it
religious
wasn't
part.
equal rights.
Well,
and it was
no.
proper. They were treated like property. It is a contract like buying something. But
Better than no contract at all.
perhaps, yeah. But the Muslims would say the same thing: is that their women have rights too, because
Mhm.
they can go to the Islamic court, if they need to get a divorce.
Oh, kind of like the
Yeah,
Jewish
they can get-
women
they get
can,
1/3
but the
of
courts never
the,
rule in their
But
favor,
the
so
courts
why
don't
bother?
really for-
Yeah, they can get 1/3 of the
Thank you,
inheritance
Ray. I
of
should
the
try.
family,
Mine too.
Yeah.
I have a
of the
question
brothers,
to go back
of
to
all
your
the
lecture.
males,
Yeah.
but they only get 1/3 of the,
You said
what the
something,
males
I wanted
get.
to
Isn't
check
that
the
what that,
statistic. I thought you said during the time period of the American Revolution, only 4% of the
Yeah.
population
That was
belonged
it.
to
Yeah.
churches?
Yeah,
yeah.
That's pretty surprising.
Now,
don't-
I guess we need to go back to what you said to me a second ago, and this. What does belong to a church mean? Actually signed up on their rolls?
As a member.
Attend regularly?
as
What
a
does that
member,
mean?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So there were only not necessarily only 4%
For a long-
attending church.
For a long time in this country, there wasn't, first of all, the churches were very far apart, except in New England.
It might take
Far
a day,
apart,
2
yeah,
days to
relatively
get to the
speaking,
church.
They didn't
They
have
have cars.
and really, there weren't that, except in New England and some of the other colonies, there wasn't that kind of enforcement. People weren't that, religious. There was a lot of divorce
So they
on the
attended.
frontier.
Would you say only 4% attended church or were members of church? I'm
I
just
think
trying to make the
members.
distinction.
I
So a
think
lot of
members.
people might have attended
Mhm.
but never been a member.
Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
right,
you could
so
do
In
that
fact,
back in the
I
day.
can't give you the reference right now, because I can't remember his name, but he was a well-known Protestant that researched that.
Really?
Yeah, with all, yeah,
It's
and
modern.
if you look in, let's see, America and the law. Or
Very early
atheism and the
lecture.
law, atheism and the law,
Atheism and law,
atheist,
very early
yeah,
law.
AtheistScholar.org, you'll find the reference.
Interesting.
What percent were atheists, though?
They're
That we
mostly
don't know.
deists, you said
Nobody's
earlier.
going to
No.
admit
Yeah,
to it.
no one's gonna, right.
But Mary,
So
I
they're
think
in the closet.
that statistic is misleading because it really didn't say whether they believed in God or not, but really what was their access to the church.
But you see, they were kind of indifferent to religion.
Well, even
Well,
that is not clear because
But did they did they have a Sunday meeting, so to speak, that was not a formal church
Yeah.
of which they were a member,
Sometimes,
but were
but-
they having,
and they had a
cause that
family
would,
Bible.
right.
If you would have asked how many families had a family Bible, it'd be a lot more than 4.
Oh,
Or how
yeah.
many maybe got
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
in their little farming enclave for a Sunday meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Without not see that, so I guess that's why I was asking, that seems
Barn
awfully
church.
misleading.
people were actually
There
a
you go.
lot more indifferent to religion in this country in the early years than.
Well, I
you know,
don't, I
is
believe
believed.
that, but I'm just.
There's
that's-
been a lot
I
of
agree, that's
propaganda
statistically
about that.
misleading. It makes it sound like, you know.
As soon as you had the urban centers growing, I mean,
they
you
Yeah,
had
had
that
to
was-
rise
churches
of
growing,
churches.
Yeah.
And if they had the money, they would give to the church.
Yeah, but a lot of people just didn't belong unless there was a lot of
But
pressure.
but why do we have all of these churches in Baltimore, for
Right.
example? It just, everywhere.
Well, remember, a lot of people that came over were religious dissidents. So
Yeah.
they started their own churches and what have
They were
you, you know.
persecuted.
Well, everybody who came over in the initial
So-
thing.
so
No,
again,
no, not
well,
all of them, you know.
in the beginning, it was a giant chunk of them.
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of them were indentured servants and, you know.
So, but the Christian historians would definitely dispute what you have,
Yeah.
what you're saying.
That, the person I'm citing is a Christian historian of like.
He's a mainstream.
Yeah, he's a mainstream Christian historian, and he has impeccable credentials, because I was questioned about this when I gave my talk on the atheism and the law at the Unitarian Church. You know, people brought this up, and I brought them his credentials. I mean, you can't get anybody more solid than the guy I quoted.
Yeah, I think I may have one of his books somewhere up there.
You also made a comment about, I missed the context because it jumped out at me and I stopped at the comment. The village atheist.
Well, yeah, that was just kind of a joke from what I read. But, you know, people
Yeah, it
were
really
like,
sounded
you know,
like the village atheist,
there
yeah.
was a tradition of the village atheist kind of being a curmudgeon,
Oh, okay.
you know.
I
Okay.
love the term though. That's
Yeah,
pretty-
I did
You know.
too. I did like that.
You know, I've always looked at, and like in the Christian faith, using the word magic is a bad thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
But they
It's in the
have
Bible.
their magic words.
Oh,
I heal you in the name of Jesus,
Yeah.
or I heal. And so, and then to me, prayers are incantations,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they don't want to use the word incantation.
oh, no.
So when you use those magic words positively, that sounds like a throwback of like white magic and black
Sure,
magic.
exactly.
When you say, so blasphemy is using the magic words for bad or
Yeah.
negative reasons.
Get in trouble
So it's
for that.
almost
You
just a
used to.
direct connection to what we've always done. Even as pagans, you'd have that
Yes.
kind of thinking going on.
Like words have that much power.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I think that's just, I just sort of look back at the whole evolution of our speech. You know, originally we were grunting, and then we found a way to convey thoughts. So you were able to speak a thought and get the next
Very
guy would
important.
get it, and that was powerful. So when you gave someone your word, it had weight. Words
Yes.
were incredible things. And then you were able to freeze these thoughts on paper, in
Yeah.
writing, and even to this day we say, give it to me in writing,
Yeah.
or it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
It's got to be in, like, writing has power.
yes.
Believe me, I could write stuff that
Yeah, words
is
have
meaningless.
enormous power, and
Yeah.
you know, from about the 70s on, there was a movement. It was part of the deconstruction movement in literature, but you know, we still use that. I still use that when I talk to people sometimes. That LOVE is not the emotion; it's just the word.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so that you take that power out of those words. It's only some letters, which are
Well,
a
it's like
loose
swear
approx-
words.
Yeah,
It's only swear words if you're gonna get all worked up about
yeah,
it.
exactly.
There are no offensive words.
Yeah,
There's only
it's-
words
this is
to
not
which some people
The flag,
take offense.
it's
There you go.
it's a representation of a flag, a picture on the page.
Although next time I swear and someone gets offended, I'm gonna pull out Mary's little quote there where she said there's no
Human right
human
not
right
to be
not to be
offended.
offended.
Yeah, I love that.
That was pretty good. I wrote that down.
That's from Justin Trotter in the
Oh,
Canadian.
It's totally
Sarah,
what we
And
do
I'm
with
gonna
it.
write down that too.
I mean, the French word for seal, sea lion, is pretty much our F word.
Yeah.
So
What
if
is
you
it?
say, well, fuck,
Oh,
that
okay,
means sea lion.
okay.
So if you say that word with a Frenchman in the room and say, I don't know, a Baptist in the room, they both process those sound waves which hit their
Totally
ears.
differently.
It all occurs inside. And that's why I say there's no offensive words, there's only words to which you take offense.
Obviously, and it's from your
Yeah.
culture.
Well,
Yeah.
I
My
did learn
parents-
don't order beer like don't ask for 2 beers in Ireland because
Oh yeah,
apparently that's like this.
is that the horns or is that
in
the
Irish?
Because it looks
I
to
don't
me like
know.
devil.
All I know
you're
is
saying you're a
this.
cuckold or
Twice as
something.
bad as
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
devil.
Right. All I know is we were told by our little when we got off the plane, the guy was like this little on our trip to the rental car gave us. He had like 20 helpful hints. He was just throwing out there, boom, boom, boom. And by the way, don't order 2 beers. 'Cause That'll get you in big trouble
Looks to
here.
me
But
like
what
the
about the
horse.
peace sign? What is the
Nope,
peace
this
sign?
one's okay. This is bad.
Oh, this is
Oh, okay.
okay.
But
I
same
hear this
same
is bad,
concept.
like
It
in,
just
some
depends on
countries.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's
that's
this
the
is
word.
bad,
Yeah,
and all
so-
sorts of
okay.
stuff. So words, signs, all
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, just
It's
The
we
elbow
hear it
on the
differently.
elbow on the arm is really
Left
bad
hand
too,
don't
yeah.
shake with because no toilet paper.
Yeah.
in the Middle East. Yeah.
Right. So
My parents had a funny anecdote. They had a friend that they took to a Greek town many years ago, and he loved the way the Greeks prepared rice with lemon and stuff.
mm-hmm.
And he asked the waiter for VZ, that means breast. And the waiter was like, "What?" You know, and they like died laughing because the real word for rice is risi.
Oh. Pronounce it.
And he said, "I would like some of that VZ." You know,
Like some boobs, thank you.
yeah. That's,
Who wouldn't?
that's
Chicken
what's
breast.
different about, and see, very offensive.
Which is why it's kind of funny that words are given so much power
Yeah.
when they can be so.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here's another example. Black people take extreme offense over the word nigger,
Oh, yeah.
and even in this modern day, that word still cannot be used.
Yeah.
Dr. Laura, she used it on the radio just to say, look, it's just a word.
Yeah,
And she
that,
was asked to resign.
yeah, you
Right.
can't say that.
But you
Yeah.
see, but in that way too, that is a blasphemous
Yeah.
attitude. That is an attitude towards blasphemy, as if it matters. That it's still just a word. It doesn't really reduce a person to non-personhood.
It
Well,
also
see,
depends
you
on the
can't,
context
you
use
can't
it
tell
in, too.
most people, that's the trouble, that's why
Yeah.
you have to pound it into students and things. You can't tell most people, in most countries, but this country, that it's just a word. They just get very
Well, it should-
upset and angry and they say, you're prejudiced or whatever word you're using.
But yeah, I'm not advocating it should be used
No, I
to
know.
demean people. But nevertheless,
But you
it's
can't
just
even use the word niggardly anymore.
niggardly, yeah, which comes from a different.
A completely
Context.
different.
I didn't think about that. I
No,
guess you're
you
right.
be careful about that one.
You know,
But
I
in the
never thought about it.
popular-
Actually, it's not a word that's in my vocabulary, but I might use it sometime.
Don't.
Trouble.
Go for it. Or parsimonious, maybe you can go with that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
But
would
anyhow,
just say
it
cheap.
is also, there's the privilege of proximity, because if you're in the room with black people and white people, it's in popular black culture to use the word all the time, as
Yeah.
long as you have the markings
Your
As
on
long
your
as you're
skin
black,
that say
yeah.
you're authorized to use the word.
Yeah.
So it's,
But it just doesn't really make much sense to me that,
No.
Well, most of these things don't.
No,
that
they
it is
don't.
such, obviously I'm white, so maybe I don't have the same issues, but it's just a word.
Yeah.
Really, because
Somebody could
Kike
call it,
would-
kike would be a Jewish thing that someone.
Would
thinking
that
I was
insult you?
Jewish would
that's
insult
what
me.
I'm asking.
It's just a word. I mean,
That's what I
what
think too.
what could anybody? As soon as you give power to somebody, you say, "Oh, if you say a certain word, I'm just going to go ballistic." on it."
Yeah.
See, I look at it as my
Yeah.
mother
yeah,
taught
hunky
me,
crackers.
That's
can have
interesting.
and it
that
doesn't
problem.
bother to me.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna kill the person and say,
Yeah.
"Well, he called me a nigger, so I had to kill him"?
Yeah.
That's not a defense.
No, it's
You
not.
call me a nigger, and let's sit down and talk about why would you?
You know why they
Call
say
me
there's
that.
a reason they say sticks and bones. May
Sticks
bury
and
my
stones,
bones.
yeah.
Yeah.
Names will
Words
never hurt
never,
me.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you
You
can
just
hurt
wanna-
someone else if they say
It's
that.
all.
They
We
don't
try.
say-
You know, we're teaching our kids swear
Against the law.
words. I'm teaching them swear words, and we're saying you're going to hear these words, and you need to understand that you can use these words, but it comes with consequences and potential prices.
That's
and
a
in
good
certain
idea.
places you're going to get in trouble, and in certain contexts you're even going to get in trouble with us. But it depends on how
That's
you
not
use
fair.
it. But you need to be aware that people put different weight on certain words, and because one of the kids said something about. It was hilarious. He said we were looking for costumes, and he said he's going to be Batman. He said, "Dad, you can be Robin and be my bitch."
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're just like, and
Oh,
Derek
no.
looks at me and goes, "He just said that." Like he just, and then we're because he's 11, he doesn't understand yet, and we're like. I looked at him, I said, "Leaf, you haven't said that around your mom yet, have you?" No.
Oh,
You didn't
I
say
wonder
that in
why.
school yet, did you?
I wonder why he
No.
has.
He must have picked it up though.
Oh,
from
we asked
school
him.
or
He
somewhere.
picked it up on the internet.
Oh, on the
Oh.
He got it,
internet.
and so what we did, and I said,
we used
I said,
to pick
"You know
up
what,
stuff
Leaf?
on the playground.
You're not in trouble. And that was funny, but understand that if you say that around certain people, I'm pretty sure your mouth is going to get washed out with soap.
Yeah.
So understand that
Oh, yeah.
that is one of those words we're telling you
That's
about
funny.
that has
Walk
different
gingerly.
meanings to different people.
Really big meanings to us.
To different people. So I mean, but that's what we're trying to teach them. Not
Yeah.
that
That's
anything's
good.
wrong.
That's a smart way.
And
to
my
do
mom
it.
always said to me, she said, you know, you can swear all you want. She goes, it just shows your intelligence level. You're just making a statement about yourself.
You know, isn't that
And
funny?
she's actually
That's
right.
kind of
in that
how I
said the
was
F word
brought
the
up
other
too.
day.
My mother always, and she also used to always say it's just a stage.
Yeah.
Whatever
I display
was
my
doing
ignorance
there.
every
Just
day
a
'cause I swear
stage.
like
She'll
a
get over
truck
it.
driver.
Yeah.
I used to take issues with profanity myself, and I worked for a guy who used the F word every other
Oh, that gets
word,
boring.
It
and
does get annoying.
all just
Gets
constantly. And it was at an auto dealership, so in
Oh,
the
wow.
bathroom the walls are covered in profanity.
Oh,
So I go to
God.
the parts
In
department,
a
get
car
some paint.
dealership?
Yeah,
Not the public bathroom.
no, just
Oh, okay.
mechanics type it.
Say
So I
what?
get a can of paint from Parts and I paint the area so it's clean, and I write the following sentence. Profanity is the result of a feeble mind trying to express itself forcibly.
That's very good.
And the next day I
I
come
like
into
it.
work and
Someone
my boss says, hey, I saw something written on the wall. It was profanity is the, and I completed it. And he said, caught you fucker, fucking right on the fucking wall again, and you're fucking fired.
That's great. I like that.
Is that a true story?
It's true, yes, it's absolutely true.
That's good. I
But no,
like that.
It's funny.
Yeah.
But you know what? People that say like every other sentence annoy me just as much. So I don't
I
even
do
know so
that
much it's
too,
the swear
yeah.
word or just the inability to
Let's make it
get
a
through a
swear word.
sentence.
Inability to express ourselves
To get through,
properly.
yeah.
And
Although
I'm very guilty of that.
I'm
Back
totally
to the
guilty.
Lecture, please.
Yeah.
Was Mark Twain ever threatened with blasphemy, prosecution?
Not prosecution, I'm sure, but I'm
Because
sure
he's-
there were a lot of Christians that thought he was.
He made fun very early
Yeah.
on.
Yes, he did.
Of
Yeah,
religion.
he did. But he didn't really make fun of God,
I thought he made fun of people
per
that
se.
were religious.
Although I don't think he was very religious, but he made fun of like people, Christian type people doing bad things.
Yeah.
You know, like in Huck Finn.
Which isn't the same.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not
By
blasphemy.
the way, speaking of that with the word nigger and stuff, I was in a class at Rackham when U of M used to give really good English classes there for credit many, many years ago. And I was in a class where we were doing American literature and the instructor, assigned Huck Finn. It was great. I mean, great book. But the black kids in there, a lot of them took a lot of exception to it. They were really upset.
Because
It ruined the discussion as far as I was concerned.
Because
course.
of Jim?
They were really mad because, Jim was called a nigger all the time, and Huck referred to Jim as a nigger, because Twain was using the vernacular
Yeah.
Of the time.
of the time, and they were very, very upset.
Because it's
And they-
actually anti-slavery.
Right, and Jim is kind of ignorant, and superstitious, remember, and they took exception to that. They just hated the book.
But he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
That's a case of it's not of the words getting in the way of the meaning.
Exactly,
Thank
and these
you.
were intelligent students,
It's a shame.
they weren't remedial. or
Although I
anything
have to
like that.
confess, I read a lot of some books nowadays that are classics, and they make me uncomfortable with the way they. I mean, even though I know it's contextual in the times and everything, it still makes me
Well,
uncomfortable.
the prejudice against women in most of the.
Those make me very. Yeah.
But you know what? I still enjoy the old Victorian novels. I mean, I think it's interesting because they were talking in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, about reading between the lines. And one day I was with some friends who were, I was a former lit major, so I was with some friends who were teaching in the university, and we were all saying that reading between the lines was not anything revolutionary, because that's how women learn how to read, between the lines.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't read any other way except between the lines. I mean, the prejudice is just dripping, about women. But I do love the Victorians, and they were terrible.
On the
Go ahead.
subject of words and their power, the word is the thing. It's not a symbol or
Yeah.
a pointer, but it's
Yeah.
the actual thing.
Yeah.
I had found traveling abroad that this is almost part of the ugly American concept is we say it, they don't understand it, so we say it louder
Oh, yeah.
because the word
Yeah.
means what it means.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard guys like they'll talk to someone who speaks Russian but
Oh,
not
yeah, and
English,
they raise their voice.
and so they say the English words with a Russian accent.
Oh, that's good.
That will make it work. I've actually seen that
Oh,
happen.
that's
I'm
good.
like, oh,
I can imagine
That will really
I can
communicate.
imagine that.
Yeah.
because it just. So on the question, you had mentioned something about Socrates.
Yes.
And his sensibility, if I'm paraphrasing, was morality is a matter of conscience, not law.
Well, it was his personal conscience that he always said he had this inner voice, this daemon or demon, that he listened to. And
Yeah.
no one really understands exactly what he meant by that. But see, he went around and he
Well, I
questioned
think-
everything. In other words, he'd say, what is truth?
Yeah.
Let's not even say morality. What is truth? And then people would start discussing it, and pretty soon they would realize that they didn't even understand what a definition of truth was. So then
Yeah.
they'd have to start all over again. This made some people very angry. Others were enlightened by it. But
like
he
in a-
aggravated a lot of people in the
in a
congregation.
religious context, you see it all the time, and just as I told you about my Jewish friend who says, yes, this is the word of the law, but we have made a moral decision
It's just
not
like
to
the
take that
Christians.
literally and act upon
Just
it.
like the Christians.
And the Christians do the same thing.
Right.
And it really is something that we all do. You can say, if the eye offends thee, pluck it out, but nobody
He does
is
it.
going to pluck their eye out. And it literally says to do that. So
Yes.
I think that even among the religious, just about everybody, we do, most of us, weigh it. Now, I
Well,
guess
see,
when we look
that's-
at the thing like Nazi Germany, Hitler didn't kill very many people. I don't know if he killed anybody. But he said words to other people,
Yes.
and they did it.
Yes.
Or, however they were influenced, sound waves hit them, and doctors and
Yeah.
professionals would say, yeah, I'm cutting this guy up or shooting him up with something, but it's because I was told to. Or,
Yeah.
and I see that there was an absence there of weighing the morality, whereas it seems to me almost every Christian I know weighs it. Every religious person weighs it. Maybe the Muslims don't as much. They
I don't
take it
think so.
literally.
I don't find that Christians weigh things that much. I mean,
Oh, I do all the time. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. The Scripture says stone gaze or something.
well, yeah, but
They
I
don't
mean,
do that. They
They want to.
they look at it and
Why
say,
would
but some of them would
Great
like to
fun.
do it. Some of them would like the real
Well,
But
fundamentals.
if there weren't
crazy
civil
ones.
laws against it, they would do it.
Yeah,
Well, I
some
have
of
a
them.
question,
Some of
kind
them,
of
not everybody.
jumping on
Some of
what
them.
he said. It seemed like, and going back to our original definition, like you were talking about Socrates, and you were talking about, it seemed like it wasn't blasphemy as much as heresy.
It wasn't. It
They weren't
almost wasn't
saying,
heresy, but it was. They were invoking these blasphemy laws because it was a political
okay.
problem.
So even
Athens
questioning
was
the form
declining.
of God, because wasn't Socrates religious? Didn't he have some belief? He just questioned
yeah,
things?
he and Plato both believed in some kind of a
So they
power,
weren't
but kind of a
necessarily
singular
cursing
power.
God.
I don't think that they really believed in like the polytheistic gods.
But I
the
don't think
pantheon gods.
his stuff wasn't about cursing. It was about questioning, which is questioning's heresy. Cursing is blasphemy.
Right.
So
right.
that's why I started getting confused as we went through, because the way you kind of described him, I thought, well, that sounds.
Well, remember, it's very
heretical then.
capricious. It was even
They
capricious
used
in
it
the
to
Catholic
do-
Church,
go
and
back
that's
and
what
forth.
Levy's point is, that it's always capricious. It's like,
Right. They
Yeah.
kind of mix.
it's a
even though they're kinda
mystification when you're finally finished with all
not.
this.
Who was Diagorus the atheist again? Is that what you said? His name?
Yeah,
How do you
yeah,
spell
he was a poet.
How do you spell
Diagoras of Milos, yeah.
Diagoras.
Oras, yeah,
Diagorus the atheist.
yeah, he was funny as hell. Throwing this statue of a god in the fire is
That's-
like,
that's-
that was blasphemy.
like burning the Quran or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Another example of the political expediency is Pussy Riot. When they
Oh
went
yeah,
into the
Yeah.
there you
church.
go.
Yeah, in Russia.
So Putin knew that they weren't just making fun of the the Russian Orthodox Church, they're making fun of his rule,
Mhm.
and that's why he went after them, right?
Yeah.
And, he's probably doing deals with the Russian Orthodox.
So they've always done that. The communists did that too. When
So
you know.
It was just a bad tactic if you were gonna take on Putin to go into the church to do what they did,
Oh, yeah,
even though it was funny as hell.
oh, yeah.
You should, you know,
Well, remember,
They should've
there's
picked a
been a
different
big
place.
revival of religion there, and Putin wears a cross and all that kind of thing very conspicuously.
And he's wearing the robes practically of the church.
Yeah,
well,
It's
I
a
mean, he's in
very
such
political
cahoots.
statement.
That, you know.
Because the folk, the people, are really leaning, coming out now,
is that
the Orthodox. More and more people are
There's a
attending
big
the
revival
Orthodox
of
Church
religion.
the way, it's returning to the way it was, you know, long time ago.
Dark Ages?
It's
The
really
Dark
hard.
Ages, you know. okay.
It's really hard to get rid of religion.
right?
I don't know if we'll ever do that, you know.
Was Larry Flint ever prosecuted for blasphemy?
Jeez, I don't think he was. I think wasn't he wasn't
Obscenity.
he persecuted for obscenity?
But he
Yeah.
made fun, he made
Yeah,
lots of
obscenity
fun
laws.
of the
Yeah,
church.
yeah, but I don't think that they ever got him on.
They never
it
tried
was
to get him on
obscenity.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They really, if you can see that Smith was the last important blasphemy trial.
1925.
Yeah, that's about it.
Interesting. And he had his own organization too, right?
Yeah.
The advancement of,
For yeah,
yeah.
of atheism.
So,
yeah.
it's interesting that was way before the American Atheists.
That's right.
That's right.
That subject has come up before.
Yes, it has. It's interesting. You made a comment that the Bill of Rights didn't apply to the states until 1925.
That's right. Yeah.
What?
Why do you
Yeah.
say that?
Well, because it didn't. The Supreme Court had to ratify all those things that applied to the
You mean
states.
the individual states had to ratify though?
No, the Supreme Court had to say that, wait a minute, how am I putting it? The Supreme Court had to say that those laws preempted the state laws.
Because,
Because they were being challenged in the courts.
They
but-
were being challenged
but
by the
that doesn't
states.
really.
oh,
Yeah, but you see, that's a different statement than to say that they didn't apply to the state.
No, they didn't.
They were the state.
They
I'm
were
not a
challenged.
constitutional lawyer, but yeah, I mean, the states were challenging. You know, that's what the Civil War was about.
Yeah,
Was challenging the federalist powers
yeah,
to enforce their laws on the states.
Yeah.
So it's a little misleading to say it didn't apply to the states. It did apply to the states. It's just that there were challenges that were going on.
well,
or
I'm
ongoing.
sorry if I made that unclear, but you know, there was a long period in our history when the state laws really had a lot of punch to them. And it took a long time, and it was around 1925 when the Supreme Court, you know, ratified.
That was the case law, but the Constitution didn't suddenly change in 1925.
No, it did not, no,
It
but,
was the case law that finally defeated
Yeah.
any of the states' rights. Well, it didn't even defeat the states' rights efforts because you had that in the 60s too.
yes, you still have
with the
state, it's still going
Civil
on.
rights laws that said no, the states' rights come first.
We're doing it right now with New Jersey.
There are
and
members on the
with
Supreme
Ebola
Court who
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah, actually they do, they believe that.
Scalia,
So,
Scalia
Thomas?
and
Yeah.
Thomas believe that, in, you know, religious disputes in communities,
Yeah.
that the community, you know, the majority of the community should make that decision. They
So
don't,
they
they
should
don't know.
override freedom of
let's start
speech and freedom of
tribalism again.
conscience.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing to me that
Yeah.
Supreme Court members believe that.
that's right there on your Supreme Court.
but really, the arc of history really is that the states are having less and less
Yes,
power when it comes to individual rights.
yeah,
Like the abortion
It
is
is
another
true,
example
yes.
of that, where ultimately it all goes to the Supreme Court anyway.
Right.
All of these state laws against gay rights, they're all going to be overturned.
but
you know.
look how long it
Within-
takes, because the state laws still have a certain amount of power, and it's because of the tradition in this country. So the Supreme Court actually had to like intervene and say like these federal law has to be applied to all the state laws. Everybody
Yeah.
has to get in line.
Because
It was very
otherwise,
important in the 1920. That was a very important
Yeah.
decision.
but it's not sustainable to say, well, in this state, same-sex people can be married, but if they move across the
No,
border,
no,
they're
of
not
course
married.
it isn't.
It doesn't make
Of
any
course
Why the
sense.
more states
Of
they
course
have,
it isn't, but
eventually
you
it's
see
gonna be
how,
national.
you see how much punch it has that they're able to do that. This Ebola thing with New Jersey and New
Yes,
York, everybody's saying, you know, like blah, 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 you know, and they're saying, well, this is public policy set by the state, each state. And, you know, who has the power to tell them they can't do that? I
Yeah,
find
well,
that
that
very
would be
interesting.
challenged.
We're
The
still,
CDC
we're still,
can't.
the CDC has no power. The federal government doesn't seem to want to intervene,
The CDC can send them a letter and say, we strongly suggest and recommend.
but that's it.
They can't say you
They
have
have
to
no
do this.
power over this.
So
this
how many
situation.
states have blasphemy laws?
I looked that up.
Oh,
Michigan-
how many are
Michigan's
there? I
one
have
of
it in atheism and
We
the
got
law.
one?
I
We
looked
have one,
it
but
up.
nobody's challenging it, and nobody's trying to enforce
Well,
it, so.
God damn
But
it.
see, we've
Oh,
got to revoke them.
I didn't-
We've got to
let's see.
revoke those laws.
Well, no, we
Blasphemy
don't.
in the
I
United
mean,
States.
if you wanna challenge it, then you face a lot of legal
Yeah.
costs. And you face the possibility that maybe it'll be upheld. To
Yeah,
say,
so
well,
what you've
why
got to
not?
do is like try to push for the states just to revoke those laws, so,
But nobody's gonna
Challenge
champion
it.
that
no,
for political
No.
capital reasons.
no.
There was a case in Michigan, upstate Michigan. We're all familiar
Wasn't
with
that obscenity though?
That was an obscenity law,
I
that's
can't
right.
remember, what did he
I think that was
violate?
an
The guy that
obsessive
swore and he swore in front of
He
the,
fell out of his
near,
rowboat.
he
and-
fell
Yeah.
out of his boat near this lady that had a couple
It
of
was an
kids.
obscenity, I'm sorry.
I think, I'm not
obscenity.
sure what it was, and he was swearing,
Yeah,
naturally, if you call it, well, goddamn, blah, blah, blah.
Like your
And-
former boss, fuck.
Yeah, and
Well,
she
That kind of thing.
reported him, and and ACLU I think went to bat, but I think he still lost. I think was
Yeah, I believe the law says that if you swear in front of a woman, she has 3 days to report you,
I didn't know that.
and then you can be in trouble. But she's allowed to say anything to a man. That's kind of what the Michigan law,
I
from what
kinda
I
like
understood,
that.
says. So she has complained for 3 days.
So
Well,
if
that's
somebody swears in
interesting.
front of you, you can say, "You fucker, you son of a bitch, I'm reporting you," and go and report him before the 3 days, and that's it.
That's it.
I followed the OIC, the Organization of Islamic States, OIS, that was trying in the UN very strongly every year to say the member states should pass a law
Yes.
against insulting. First they tried it against the prophet, they said insulting the prophet. Then they said all religions.
Yeah,
But
well,
really
they had
they
to
meant
say that.
Islam,
Yeah, they couldn't just
Because
say they
they
profit.
were all Islamic states.
Yeah,
And then they argued that this is for the good of the community, as you mentioned, that this was to make sure that everybody just gets along.
yeah, yeah.
Now, the important thing is that it nearly passed. It got very far before the General Assembly said, no, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, the point is that it still got defeated in the long run.
It got defeated, but Hillary Clinton, who was the Secretary of State at the time, said that, of course, we want to encourage the respect for religions. So she tried to walk that fine line and say,
Hillary
"Oh,
always
of course
does
we
that."
don't want to insult religion." She didn't come out and say we want to have a law against it.
No, because she would have
But-
been against it, yeah.
But she did she didn't come out, as you did at the end of your lecture, and say, you know, you have no right to be not offending. There's no right to be not
In
offending.
America, you'll never be
She
elected
never-
for anything.
She never said that. When the Muhammad video on YouTube came out, remember the life of Muhammad, I forget the exact
Was that
title.
that silly video that,
Yeah.
it was like,
And then they were protesting. Obama said, oh, people should not make videos making fun of Islam. And you see what's happening? They're rioting in Benghazi because of this video, when in fact it was a pre-planned terrorist attack. But he blamed initially the
oh, that's,
rioting
you're right, I
in
forgot about that,
Benghazi on the
yeah.
Muhammad video, and he said people should not make fun of Muhammad. He never said people have a right to speak.
Which was
The word I knew.
a cardinal thing in this country, and all
Now
of
we
a
don't
sudden, like
So-
the last
Yeah.
10 or 20 years,
So it's a little scary because the next step was, well, we have to ban speech because people are rioting and we don't want to have riots, so we'll just ban speech.
but see, that's wrong.
But that would have been the next step to
Yeah.
take. That's what my fear is that they'll say, well, in theory, of course, you're right, but just for the good of the people,
Well, see, that's why we have to be vigilant. That's why our secular organizations and the ACLU and the, CFI and American Atheists and Americans United for separation of church and state, they have to take issue, and they do all the time. They do all the time, and our groups do take people to court on this stuff. Otherwise, they would
But-
run roughshod.
Well,
on us.
go ahead.
the other strain is there's a parallel strain to free speech, which is don't offend other people.
Yes,
And to, to live in this plural, to live in a diverse, tolerant civilization, we can't say things that are offensive to other people.
well,
we can,
you know, I
but-
mean, I think you can say it in a certain way where you don't mean to offend, like,
But then the guy wants to burn the Koran in front of the mosque in Dearborn, he is going to incite a lot of people to be at least coming out and to be upset. But there would be people that would want to ban him from doing that.
well,
Well,
that's
they
wrong.
still have
He's-
flag burning. They're still trying to ban that, for
Yeah,
heaven's sake.
he's got a right to do that, but the
Yeah.
point is, like people say, just because you have a right doesn't really mean that you
do
should.
that.
You
And I think you have to think about that before you do stuff like that. Of course he has a right, and I would defend that as Voltaire says to the death, but, you're also saying like he's exhibiting awfully bad judgment. He's
It's a
being
difference
pro-
between knowledge and wisdom, kind of, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the Quran is his personal property.
yeah.
He's free to do with
Oh,
his
yeah,
personal
he's got,
property
he's
what
got
he
his
wishes.
right, he's absolutely.
There may be
in it.
consequences, but if your concept is to not offend, then say guys like from Westboro Baptist Church, maybe they should be censored, or we should be
Yeah,
censored.
no, I don't think we
So,
should
you know,
censor
you just-
people. I
The government
really-
shouldn't do it, but we should be wise enough to know
Well, see,
when
that's a good
when
point,
to do
because
it.
you say about the Westboro, because a lot of liberals
He's
would
dead
like them
now,
to
you
be
know.
censored.
Thank
We
goodness.
can't do that, that's why we're lucky we have the ACLU, despite all its warts and everything like that, and that's why we're lucky we have Americans United for Separation of Church and State, because they're standing up for the rights of every American
Yeah.
to express themselves, even if we don't like it.
Okay, now I have a question.
Yeah.
Because we looked it up.
Okay,
It is definitely on the Michigan law books.
okay,
It was part of the Michigan Penal Code of 1931. There's nothing on here that said it's been rescinded. The law reads very simply: any person who shall willfully blaspheme the holy name of God by cursing or
Contumeliously.
contumeliously reproaching God shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. So my question is, why, you made the point earlier about these laws should be off the books, and I don't disagree. So they're probably on the books simply by inertia.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody wants
so,
to challenge it, nobody wants to take it off.
Well, they'll challenge it. They're not going to prosecute
Yeah.
you.
But
Yeah,
yeah, they're
you're
not
right.
gonna. But why aren't we doing something about why? You just named all these great groups, and we have plenty of Michigan
You know
people.
why?
Why isn't anybody saying, by the way, let's get rid of this?
You know
Come to the
why? We
convention.
have so
We'll do it.
many other important issues that are current right now, and the religious are always,
yeah, but
always.
this.
750.
There you go.
Which God does it refer
But
to?
this brings up. This is one of those things that you. Yeah, really, exactly. Which God? This was one of those things though that brings up. Okay, maybe it's not important, but it would incite important discussion
Yeah.
and important emotion
Sure.
and
Yeah.
important stuff.
Sure.
That once, if you were to get people to talk about this, you might be able to. This is like one of those slippery slope things.
Yeah.
If you can get them to get this off the books, then maybe you can start saying, "Well, wait a minute. Now we need to think
Yeah,
more
but see,
about what
we
about
can't
the
look
abortion
at, we can't get
laws."
we can't get religious things off the city stationary, and we can't get little
Well, I
religious
understand, but
symbols
this
off
would be one of those things that would help
bridges.
That's it.
put the help get those things accomplished.
But
because
see, we don't have enough
Let's
money, we
put that
don't
on
have
the
enough
document,
time,
but
the
you have
Christians
another
have a
thing.
lot
In
of
order
money.
for that to happen,
Don't be
the
so
legislature has to act.
Yeah.
And who
So
Can you
who
imagine
elects
our
the
legislature
legislature?
acting?
no, but
Who
but
elects the
at least has a
legislature?
legitimate-
But the
proposal.
people who are
Christians.
Christians.
You have to find a sponsor, a legislator, to introduce the.
That's right, to introduce the
And
bill,
who
and it
is
would get
gonna
down
do
on the
that?
floor, it would be debated, and it would be shelved for next year.
It might be shelved with some cleverness. Maybe you could link it to another blue law that's also ridiculous. Some
Right.
other thing, and say we want to get rid of both
start
of these.
pointing out some ridiculous stuff.
You know, no.
Well.
But that paves the way to start dealing with some of the other things that people don't
Yeah.
think are necessarily as ridiculous, but are,
Yeah.
such as telling us we can't have abortions just because religion says we can't, and you can't gay marriage just because religion said.
Birth
It's
control.
one of those little.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least
birth
you could start a
control.
petition online. You could query the Michigan Atheists, see if they were interested, get enough people to sign something.
I can't imagine
We'd have a
Michigan
referendum.
atheists would do that because they're so preoccupied with
Well, and
more important
that's
issues.
probably true.
Well, although the
It's all important.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
of course
It's a
it's-
Right.
strategy.
Yeah,
it
but
depends on it's a
But you need
tactic.
money,
It's
you
a
need money
strategy
to
and
do
a
these
tactic.
things, your
Yeah.
lawyers will work
I
pro
can't see the
bono.
body politic moving to.
And you're probably right,
Thinking
and I'm
that
not saying that
we
they
would-
wouldn't have all
I
these
know
But
what you
I mean,
mean.
yeah, I think it
I'm
would be
not-
a
I'm
good
not
gesture.
poo-pooing it, I mean,
It
I
is
think
on
it's
the
a great
books.
gesture.
I
I
mean,
think
It
it's
would be an
very-
excellent gesture.
I
But
still
we've
hold
got
though that
such
it's,
issues.
I believe that still that religion is not necessarily the problem. That the problem is that the overwhelming majority of humanity are followers and insist on being followers. And so if you were to abolish religion completely, they would insist on finding something else to follow, whether it's a political party or patriotism
Well, I
or
agree.
some idealism like Nazism or something like that.
I agree,
Well, that's
but
okay, but
you
there's
know,
you
the
need
no.
to
thing is
replace
with
it with moral-
education, if we could limit population and educate people better, I think you wouldn't have that happening.
I
But
think you just
I
remove
know
the
that's a
basis
pie
for
in
some
the
of their
sky, I know that
arguments.
that's an
But
ideal,
getting
but I
rid of a
think we have to
system without
work to
having
that.
one to replace it is the
Yes,
concern.
I agree,
Because
I
people
agree.
will root around till they find someone to say, yes, you're the guy.
I agree.
But you didn't root around, right? Greg, what about you? You're not a Nazi, so.
Well, I'm saying,
I think the trick
And they're
is
not?
to
You're-
get rid
you're-
of
I
religion, it's to
believe I'm
make it
saying, which is the
irrelevant.
first sign that I'm not.
Yeah,
And
Well,
you
I'm
had
saying-
points about making religion irrelevant by simply saying we don't stone them anymore, so why is this even relevant?
Mhm.
I mean, if
we
you
make conscious,
you don't
yes.
get rid of religion, you just simply make it as irrelevant as possible and in as many ways as possible, and boom.
well, there's
There's so many,
I
that's the wrong
posted it on
morality source.
our meetup discussion board. Adam Lee, whom I kind of like, even though he likes Ayn Rand and daylight atheism, he's actually been writing a few articles for the Guardian, which is incredible. I mean, I think it's a real accomplishment. And his latest is about what's happening with the millennials, and they're becoming more and more indifferent to religion. And he was writing about how you can look it up on either in the New York Times, or you can look at, or in the Guardian, or you can look it up on the Atheist, Scholars Meetup, the
But I
discussion
think
site.
the wise
But he's-
were embraced religion.
The millennials aren't at all. And
Well, I
he's
know,
got a very
But it seems to
interesting.
go zigzaggy. Okay, so baby boomers did they embrace or
No, they were pretty irreligious, the baby
how about
boomers.
Generation Xers?
The long-term
I
trend
think
is down.
Xers, yeah, the long-term trend is
trend
down.
is slowly,
Wise.
slowly,
Just
slowly
look it
down.
up on the Atheist Scholar Meetup
Yeah.
under,
Yeah, it's a
what the hell
continuing
did I put?
decline.
Atheist
It's not
demographies. And-
But the youth always just
But
reject the
Catholic
adult
Catholicism
thing.
is losing and losing, and so are the Baptists now.
Yeah, well,
So
not
the
fast
more
enough.
traditional religions are losing. It's very an interesting little article. It's
Wait,
short.
unfortunately though, they're adopting these freaky things.
Spiritual.
And these mega church. Well, not just that, but they're adopting these freaky.
No, they're not
whatever.
interested in the mega churches
No, they're not
either.
interested, no,
Now, unfortunately, though, a lot of people are into yoga and like spiritual
The
type.
spiritualism.
Yeah, loose spiritual shit. The universe. My son was
Om.
saying in California, a whole bunch of people are so into that, and even more than their word. It drives them up a wall when people start saying, like,
Crystals.
yeah, this happened because the universe wanted it that way.
Yeah,
See, I
well,
remember them
Everybody
saying
goes
all this
crazy.
when I was a kid. I remember thinking, oh, good, they finally, good. People in my generation are saying, and yet I meet so many people my age that are religious nutcases.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what happened? This
They
is
get
just not
older. How would you
true.
like to be in our age group and have all these crazy people that are
Well,
scared
but then,
of
so I
dying?
guess what everybody was just saying is they keep saying that about the youth, but then the youth keep coming back to religion.
Well, that's
They
a
somehow.
just
problem.
rebel against the adults, whoever they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah,
So
that's a
if
problem.
if the adults say they're looking for their own personhood and they
Yeah.
just
Well, I think we had so much religion pushed down the people's throats,
Yeah.
for a while when our third great awakening in the United States, just a while ago. And I think that maybe now the pendulum is turning again.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
For
Well,
a
I say
while.
we slap everybody with, even the religious ones, with some blasphemy lawsuits and see how.
What about religious porn? We never really approached that subject, have we? The people who are very religious talk
What do they
often about how concerned God is with what we do when we're naked. And
Well, I bet
What's
they talk
religious
about it a
porn?
lot.
Humping
religious
cross?
religious porn
What the
is
hell was that?
is being incensed by obscenity, so you have a reason to talk about it.
Well, that's
and at least you
the
can
point.
get the subject into your mind, which is what you're really after. And
Talking about sex. Well, I think that's those people that go around, well, I don't think they go around as much, but they used to go around all the time, like finding all that dirty stuff in the drugstores and, you know,
Yeah.
the magazines and stuff. Now, you know, this gave them an excuse to look at the stuff, read the stuff. Oh, terrible.
glad that's not me.
Now we'll ban it for everybody else. I read it, but you know,
Yeah,
I
the
know.
gay bashers.
Well, actually, I'm trying to think. One of the New York Times writers that he was on TV during the Clinton scandal, and the interviewer was asking him very solemnly about, the whole country was talking about it and blah blah blah, and then the New York Times writer looked at him and he said, "Yeah, and they're having the time of their lives." And that's about the truth of it, you know.
You can only quote scripture so long
Yeah.
before you need a little excitement. In your
Yeah,
life.
exactly. Well, they get little groups where they get sex toys now and stuff. I understand the Christian ladies, yeah,
Christian sex toys?
yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
don't know if
it's
they're
like
Christian sex
a
toys.
Tupperware party.
As long as it's in marriage.
Oh.
That's what I read in the New York Times a while back. This was
Yes.
about 6-7 years ago. That they have,
Dildos?
huh?
They get dildos? What do they get?
Well,
Yeah, the whole thing.
little sex
Okay.
toys, yeah, dildos
Everything.
and
Pure
this and
romance
that,
parties and
vibrators
everything,
and
but
stuff.
they found a way to.
But to be used only
Yes.
in marriage.
Yeah.
That doesn't really make much sense, though.
No,
Well,
they
better
do
have
make
that wedding
sense.
ring
Why are you
on.
The
trying to make
husband, the
sense?
husband is supposed to be the one
Why are you
to
trying to make
provide that
sense?
equipment.
But
Well,
he doesn't vibrate.
I
He
guess.
doesn't vibrate. So, but you see, I have not read that article, but it sounds almost.
No, it is
not
true. I
believable.
have a friend that does pure romance parties.
I know about those, but what does that
But
have to do
no,
with
she was
Christianity?
telling me about that there were, because she's a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, as strong as any of us here, and she was laughing about how there was a. She said there was a group of them that were only doing, only their church girls, and they had to
Yeah.
be married. She's right. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a small.
But they
Um,
have to be in the service of procreation.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so it
Not
doesn't make
in
any sense.
Not necessarily.
pleasure.
I don't
It's
think
not-
so. I
If
don't
it
think
doesn't
anymore.
improve your
No,
chances
no,
of
no,
having
no.
I don't
babies,
think
A
anymore.
lot of religions are simply about you don't have sex outside of the marriage, or not
Yeah, that's it.
necessarily
In the marriage,
against.
yeah.
It's in the marriage, and as long as you are
It's sacred.
exploring this, outside toys within the context of the marriage, you are not sinning.
and you don't block conception because
No.
then you're blocking God's
No, that's
will.
only Catholics and stuff. Not
Oh,
Catholics.
okay.
Plenty of
I
Protestants.
think
that
that
don't
a lot of
believe in
people
that.
are not. They don't mind. A lot of religions don't mind
No, they
about
don't care
birth
about the
control. It
birth-
depends.
yeah.
Depends on
Well,
the
my
religion.
religion, that's the first thing I would ban is dildo. You must come to the man. Right.
But I thought that was
What
part
if
of,
you're a female and a female? You gonna just stick a man in there for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as a tool?
Yeah, that's a
As a
man's
tool?
dream. Are you
As a
kidding?
tool.
That's every
Well, you
man
have
wants
harvest
that. You
season
know.
and corn cobs and things like that.
All tools.
That's the great
And the corn
ideal.
cob.
You
Back
realize
to seriousness.
he is gonna take that part off the tape, right?
Who knows?
Corn cobs.
I don't know. Does he
Norm
necessarily have
volunteering
to?
for.
Yeah, actually, you just volunteered.
Maybe we should get
I'll
that
leave
on
that
tape.
part on.
Norm says leave that part on. Leave
Yeah.
that part on.
It was
I'm
kind of a
volunteer.
personal ad.
Yeah.
Alabama did try to, and maybe it's still on the books. You cannot buy a dildo in the state of Alabama.
Oh my God.
I hope that's been challenged.
I heard it was in Alabama too that oral sex was illegal.
Yeah,
It was
isn't
considered sodomy or something.
A lot of
And
them.
during
Yeah,
the
any
divorce
sex that
case-
isn't like
During
you know.
this divorce case, the wife said, well, he had given me oral sex, and he said, well, yeah. And they convicted him and threw him in jail. So she really got to strike in there. Hey, I was just trying to make her happy, you
He
know?
shouldn't have. He shouldn't have admitted it.
Yeah.
Back to a more serious topic. Pakistan, I think, needs to be mentioned in the context of blasphemy because it is probably the worst country
I mentioned it.
Yeah.
to say anything about.
Yeah, I mentioned
Religion.
it. They are considered the worst. I gave a rundown of all the people. that
People
were in
on
jail,
death row,
on
like
death
17
row.
of them or something.
That's right, but you have to ask yourself then, well, why is it that Pakistan is the worst country for this? I imagine there's other countries that are also bad as well, but you alluded to the turmoil that happened, around these blasphemy laws, there's also a lot of political strife and turmoil and perhaps backlash against leaving religion or criticizing religion. The backlash is to pass these laws against blasphemy. So even like the lawyers who just defend these people, they get killed for even defending the people
I think
who
I've
are,
seen that, on the news.
who are
sometimes.
accused of blasphemy, and then the laws are made up, or the crimes are made up against Christians. It's like a witch hunt where you can just say, well, he said, I heard him say that Muhammad,
That's the trouble.
was this. So then they throw him in jail just on that basis alone. There's some very deep psychological underpinnings to all of this, because that wasn't the way it always was. It wasn't in Pakistan or in these other countries. It is sunk to a new low.
Yeah.
The amount of the vitriol where the gangs are going after because they heard that somebody said something. The gangs go after them if the law does not.
Well, don't you think that the economic conditions, they say that so many people are unemployed, especially the young in those countries, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
And then they're continuously pressed now by modernity.
Modernity and Facebook and
Yeah.
people posting the cartoons,
Yeah,
which you didn't mention, the cartoons.
Yes.
The Danish cartoons also had already been published a year before the first protest against the cartoon.
Yeah,
from what I read,
somewhere
when I read, the
thinking,
imams
what the heck?
got together and started to foment the trouble
Yeah,
there, some
because
of
they'd
the
say,
imams.
wouldn't this be a good way to work people
Yeah.
up
Yeah,
towards Islam by saying, look how awful these Europeans are.
well, Ralph Reed here in this country, and people still, he's still back. Not as like he was, but he actually said, they actually had him saying to somebody, I think was it on the net or was it a letter, that I forget, some measure that they wanted or something that they wanted to say, and he said that'll bring the crazies out. So he was making fun of their own supporters. He knew that the extreme wing would come out if they said certain
Key
things.
words.
And that's, keywords, and I think that's exactly what they probably do in the Muslim countries too. They know that they're gonna get the real nutties out, and then they'll start protesting. I'm sure that,
These are like landmines, and
yeah,
they're just waiting
Yeah.
to explode,
Right.
like the blasphemy laws
Yeah.
in Michigan. They just get you.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
But on the
There's
other
always
hand,
a way.
it does seem to be like a fever that passes, because you mentioned a lot of other laws that were taken very seriously at one time, and
Yeah.
then were sort of just ignored after a
Yeah.
while. You mentioned Monty Python, Life of Brian, the case in the gay news. It's like
Yeah.
it got a lot of attention, but 10 years later, forgotten.
Yeah,
Right,
and
who
who
cares?
cares? Exactly.
So ultimately I think that's what's going to happen. Even
And you notice that was a private prosecution. You can do that in England. The public prosecutors did not bring that
I
Wouldn't
prosecution.
didn't know you
Bob.
could do that.
Yeah, yeah, they have a tradition of that. You have to pay for it all.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
unless you win, of course, and then the people that lose have to pay, part of the cost. So you have to be kind of wealthy to bring it or get wealthy support for it. And, even then, you notice that most of them didn't even, his sentence was reversed, Lemon, and only the gay news had to pay £1,000.
But, ultimately, I think that their new strategy is going to be, you're picking on us. You don't have a right to bully us, meaning the religious people are going to say
They
this.
always say that,
Well, but in the past it was, you can't say it.
yeah.
Now it'll be, and more so, now that you are able to say it, you shouldn't say, because you're hurting our minority feelings.
Our minority rights, yeah.
Our minority rights, we have rights too, and you're infringing on them.
So this
like,
is what political
the war on
correctness is said
Christmas.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, it sort of flips the debate. It says, instead of saying there's a law against it, we have to say there's a law that should protect us.
yes. And you notice, so they make money because they sell those things about the war on Christmas and everything.
Yes, yeah.
They sell.
Yeah,
Lot
they
of-
sell the
lot of
slogans
money
and stuff
there.
to put on the car and ties and stuff like that.
Books.
Yeah, books, yeah. So they're making money. So if they're doing the same damn thing as, you know, they're engaging in capitalism.
Yeah. But you hear these things.
Well, capitalism is the new Christianity.
Capitalism
Oh,
really is.
stop. You hear these things coming from a government worker. You hear these things about that ministers are going to be forced to marry gay couples.
Oh yeah.
That they're going to be forced by the government
Yeah.
because as soon as gay marriage becomes legal, they're going to have to marry, and that's not true.
Yeah.
Patently false. But that's how they
Scare
deal
tactics.
as if now they are the victims.
They've been playing that card now for a long time. We're the victims.
It's very funny
Everybody's
that
taking away
they
our
insist
rights.
on this perspective.
Everybody wants to ban
The
us.
war on religion, and who's the army? You guys have 80% of the population. Who's the army?
And you get tax breaks, and you get
All kinds of nice things.
free
Yeah.
labor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All those volunteers.
Yeah, that sounds, war.
What war?
I thought war.
That's like
involved really-
teach the controversy of evolution. Of
I mean, personally, I
intelligent
don't want
design.
to ban
Teach the
religion.
controversy
I
in
mean,
the
if
school.
they would
What
just leave us
controversy?
alone, I wouldn't care what they were doing. I mean, I want everybody's rights to be honored in this country. And just please honor ours.